Thanks very much, Bex. So my name's Tim Cowse. I'm the head of the business agency, not the chairman, but it's all right. It's
Sorry,
okay.
Tim.
So your new job. I can have it. I can have it. It's all right. So I just wanted to introduce. I just wanted to introduce really, just to say, first of all, thanks to Rebecca and Jess for sorting this out to set up these calls. This has all come out of economic recovery. We noticed that there was a need to support businesses across a wide ranging of sectors, and it's really positive to see Jess give up her time to do this sort of stuff. And what we want is businesses leading this from the front and understanding from a business to business point of view. So absolutely brilliant. So good to see so many on here to support that. And I'd just like to hand over to Jess, and thank you very much for your time this morning. And if there's anything at the end that you have any questions on, then please feel free to ask us any questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tim. And without further ado, I will bring Jess in. Here she is. Wonderful.
Good morning, everyone. Bex, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Thanks, Jess.
Okay, great. So welcome, everyone. And obviously, first of all, thank you so much to Chamber and to Bex, who've organised this, and the Department of Enterprise. It was really nice to see that they were going out, to specialists in the area and asking them to impart knowledge. And I haven't done many Zoom trainings. I love to train, and I really love the interaction that training can have. So please ask questions. I will stop at certain sections and ask you to interact. I also just wanted to say, if there are any questions that you don't feel comfortable asking on the chat and you would like to ask them, please just jot them down, and I'm happy for you to email me or to message me on LinkedIn afterwards. So I wanted to start by just this morning, I wrote down some of my intentions for today, and I thought I'd share them with you. So first of all, I wanted to make sure today that I inspire you to do more and see more in your digital marketing. And I'm hoping that I can motivate you to commit more time. And basically, if you can finish this training and be intrigued by what's out there, then I will feel like I've done my job well. So just on a side note, I do tend to talk quite fast. It's probably because I'm really excited about this subject. So if I am going too fast, just pop a message in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'll try and rein it in. But yeah, hopefully these next 2 hours we'll have a little bit of fun. I'm going to show you some examples, and please note that this is such a broad subject that what I've tried to do is at the end of the training manual, I have put some useful links. So on each subject, you can go and explore more and learn more. So I think a good starting point is probably to share my screen. So if you just give me 2 seconds, can you see that? Can you see digital marketing strategy?
Yes, that's perfect. Thanks, Jess.
Okay, awesome. So maybe first place is to just explain a little bit about, I'm skipping ahead, a little bit about who I am. So I have a traditional marketing background, but in probably the last 5-6 years, I have shifted more to digital marketing. And more recently, my husband and I started a company called Fundi, which I'll talk to you about in a second. But the idea is that I'm a digital marketing specialist, and I'm actually really passionate about training, and I've done quite a bit of training over the last 7 years. I'd like to think of myself as being a bit creative and a big thinker. So there are some ideas I may put out there that are a bit bigger than you'd maybe hope to go, but bear with me. I survive on coffee, and you'll see the picture over there. It's not by coincidence that there's coffee in that. But yeah, I'm a proud woman in business. Absolutely love our puppy, Charlie. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see he dominates most things. I'm a planner and a strategist. So you'll see a lot of what I talk about today is rooted in planning and in strategy. I am South African, if anyone hadn't guessed. And yeah, I've been on the island for 7 years. So really passionate about our island. And I'm just excited today to share with you. So I think what qualifies me to speak is probably the fact that we have a Fundi and we live and breathe digital marketing every day. So the first question people ask is, what is a fundi? Well, it's an expert or an enthusiast. It's an African word, and it means an expert in their trade. And that's why we named our business that. And what we try and do at a fundi is we basically are a full service software development and digital agency. So I've put a little bit in here. You can read who we are. And yeah, if you ever want to get in touch and you want to talk about anything, then please do. So today's session, you would have obviously seen the overview. What you will see is that I haven't 100% stuck to it. And it's mainly because when I put this together, I looked at some of the latest trends, and I just kind of looked at what I'm dealing with when it comes to servicing my clients. And so I've deviated slightly from this. And what you will see is we'll go through everywhere from digital marketing through to websites, social media, touch on SEO, then to content marketing and email marketing. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with inbound marketing. So during the course, you may think, well, why are we speaking about this? But I promise you at the end, it will all come together. And then we'll talk about specifically how you can just create a great customer experience. So first of all, I just thought I'd go right down to the basics. What is digital marketing? So basically, digital marketing is the use of digital channels such as search engines, social media, email, websites. And the idea is that you use these platforms to market your service and your product to consumers and to businesses. And I often get asked, why is it important? And I think the idea is that you have the possibility to reach so many people. I remember when I first started out in marketing, and I created a billboard on the side of a motorway in South Africa. And the client said to me, well, how many people will see this? And what is my return on investment? And I remember sitting there thinking, well, I have no idea how many people are going to drive down this road and see it. And the idea with digital marketing is that you just are able to reach so many more people. You don't have to rely on someone driving down the road. I think the other thing is that with digital marketing, you can actually engage with your audience. So I think it's all about a two-way conversation. And I would go as far as to say that's where people miss the beat. I think a lot of companies believe it's just about putting messages out there and then sort of hoping they resonate. The idea is to engage with your target market, and we'll go through that a bit later. Traditional marketing has always been seen as quite an expensive commodity, whereas digital marketing is a lot more cost effective. The idea is that you can actually track your progress and calculate your return on investment. So almost everything that you do online, you can now track things like how many people view it, how many people click on it, how much does it cost for each click. And the idea is it's much easier to sell internally when you're able to actually say, well, we spent X and we got Y. So we'll touch on that a little bit. And then obviously you can have a voice and be part of the conversation. And I think that's so important is, I always think word of mouth is something that will never go away. But I think the great thing about having a space online is that you can kind of narrate the story and you can comment. So instead of someone just saying to their friend, oh, I had a really bad experience, now they normally go and put it in a group. And I think we all know what group we're talking about. And the idea is that you can obviously now engage and you can defend yourself, or you can get part of the kind of start the conversation or be part of it. And I think that's really exciting. So I think most people think of digital marketing and then these buzzwords come around like owned, paid, and earned. So I just thought I'd touch on what these mean. So owned refers to anything that you have full control over online. So that's going to be your social media business page, such as your Facebook or LinkedIn business page. It's going to be your website. It's going to be your blog content or any imagery or content that you put out there. So it's anything you have full control over. Whereas paid, as it says on the tin, is something that you're spending money on. So that will be your social media advertising, your Google AdWords, or if you advertise on like a third-party website. And then the last category is earned. And that's basically your word of mouth marketing or PR. And it's the exposure that you earn through that. So today we're going to focus on owned and paid, and especially on owned, because I think that there is a massive opportunity to really own your own digital marketing space. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll be able to go back and make improvements on things like your website, your social media, maybe the emails that you send out. So I'm going to jump in and first talk a little bit about this slide, which is something that I show my clients all the time. And basically what it is this is how I see digital marketing. And the website, and your website in particular, is at the center of your universe. I believe that everything else that you do should be linking back to your website. And so whether you're posting on social media or you're doing content marketing or traditional marketing, it should all be funneling efforts back to your website. And I think the reason for this is your website is the one place where you have 100% of your customers' attention. And we'll speak a little bit later about conversions. And the idea is that on your website, you'll be able to actually cultivate a lead or nurture a lead. You'll be able to make a sale. And if I compare it to something like social media, which is great, but when you're on Facebook, I think anyone knows, you see 100 million different things going on. Whereas when someone is on your website, you hopefully have their full attention. And so the idea is that your website has to be great and it has to be functional, and everything else should be trying to drive traffic back to your website. So if you bear that in mind as we go through, it will make a lot more sense. So first up, creating a strategy. Now, often I speak to clients and they say to me, you know, oh, we're a small business. Do we really need a strategy? And the idea is that you can have a strategy that's half a page or 1 page, or you can have a 10-page document that's your strategy. But every single business, big or small, should have a digital marketing strategy, and in fact should have an overall marketing strategy. And I think the question is, why do you need it? Well, you need it because it's the only place where you can probably keep referring back to when it comes to what are my business objectives? What are my marketing objectives? And everything that you do, are they tying back to those objectives? It also gives you some clarity and allows you to focus your activity. So every time you post or you do something on your website, you should be going back to your strategy and saying, well, does this actually tie into what I'm looking to achieve? And the starting point of that is to understand your customers and what they want. And so the idea here is that your customers should be at the heart of everything you do. And so on the next slide, I'll explain to you, how do you create a customer persona? And the idea is, once you've done that, you should be able to always say, well, hold on, this is what my customer wants and needs. Am I actually being true to that and giving them what they want and need? So I think it's also about making sure that your customers have like a seamless customer experience. So if you have a strategy that underpins your website, your print, your email marketing, your social media, then the idea is that you're singing from the same hymn sheet, and therefore they should have a seamless customer experience. Probably easier said than done. They also, a strategy also allows you to analyze your value proposition. What are your unique selling points? What can you shout about? What's different about your business? A strategy can also help you increase your efficiency. So when you have things documented and you have a plan, it allows you to be a lot more efficient with your time and with your budget. It also allows you to choose the right platforms. So there's a massive misconception, especially with social media, when people say, well, I have to be on LinkedIn, I have to be on Facebook, I have to be on Instagram, I have to do this, I have to do that. The idea is that if you have a strategy and you know what your objectives are, you then should look at each social media platform and say, well, hold on, is that well suited to who my clients are and who my customers are? And is this channel going to be able to meet my objectives? If it's a yes, then dive in. But if it's a no, rather take your time and effort and plow it into something that's going to be more valuable. And then lastly, having a strategy will allow you to actually establish, what do you want to achieve by doing all of this activity? So what are your KPIs? And I think once you've established your KPIs, you'll be able to continuously revisit your strategy and see if it's successful or not. So some of the things that you may want to consider when putting a strategy together, and there are so much more that you'll probably look at, but I just wanted to put 8 key steps down. And the first is develop your customer persona. That is the most important thing. Who are you talking to? And you probably want to create multiple customer personas if you have different customers, and you can go as deep as looking at their demographics. You can look at their interests, wants, and needs. You can look at how much they're willing to pay. You can look at personality. You can look at what they do on the weekends. And the idea is, if you build these little customer personas, every time you post online, you'll be able to say, well, hold on, will this resonate with my customer? And honestly, I do it all the time for my clients. I look at what the customer persona is. I look at the piece of content we have, and I say, is this well suited? And I think having it documented means that you actually go back and you refer to it versus just saying on the top of your head, well, I think this is what my customers like. The next thing, identify your objectives and your goals. What do you want to achieve? You know, I get so disheartened when I hear people say, I just have a website because I know I need it. It's not really good enough. What do you want to achieve with your website? What do you want to achieve on social media? Document those, and then you can make sure that you're continuously working towards those goals. Define your brand. You know, this is one of the most exciting things about what I do, is trying to get to the heart of what makes a brand a brand. So what is your voice like? You know, are you fun and quirky? Are you more professional? You know, what do you want to look and feel like? So when people look at your brand, how do they connect with it? You then want to review your current activities. So if you are actually doing digital marketing, if you're on social media, send out emails, and you want to put together a strategy, you'll probably want to go revisit what you're doing now. You want to evaluate, am I doing well? What's worked? What's not worked? And actually, again, document it so that you can go back and say, well, hold on, I'm not going to run a competition like this because last time it just didn't work very well. So it gives you a point of reference. Next, you're going to want to select the right channels. And like I said before, that's going to be really based on, you know, what are your goals and what are your objectives. You're then going to develop your content strategy. So what kind of content are you going to want to put out there? Are you going to do blogs? Are you going to create awesome infographics? Are you going to do a podcast? So once you know what you want to achieve, you can then say, well, what is the vehicle for this in terms of content? You're then going to set your budget. And my biggest tip is budget your time, not just your money. So the idea is that unfortunately, digital marketing does take a huge amount of time and effort. And therefore, when you put your strategy together, make sure you're analyzing how much time do I need, or do I need from my staff, or do I need from a third-party agency? But outline that so that you make sure you allocate the right amount of time and money. And then lastly, you're going to want to determine your KPIs and your tracking methods. And one of the courses that I'm going to deliver on Friday is about data analytics. And the idea is that it's going to tie in, what should you be looking at in terms of KPIs? How do you monitor progress? How do you report on progress? And so if you're interested in that in particular, then definitely sign up for that course. So someone I really respect always used to use this in his sort of branding presentation. And I don't know if anyone's seen this, but it's something that Simon Sinek came about and said, everyone should be marketing the why of their business. So the why of the business is the core belief of the business. It's why the business exists. The how is how your business fulfills that need. And the what is what the company does. So the idea is the why, how, and what. When putting your strategy together, make sure your main focus is on your why. So if we look at Apple, for example, if you look at their adverts, they don't focus on the technical elements or the software or the hardware of their phone. They focus on the lifestyle, the feeling, the reason you'd want to be part of the Apple family. And so I love that saying. It says consumers don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So when you put your strategy together, just make sure you're looking at the why and not focusing too heavily on the how and what. Those are secondary messages. So as I come to the end of that first little introduction to digital and to strategies, is there any questions? I'm just going to have a little look. Yeah, awesome. Let's carry on. So the next thing we're going to talk about, which is my favorite subject, is websites. So I absolutely love website development. I think it's such an exciting, creative, and strategic process. And this saying is something that I always try to slip in when I'm talking to clients. Websites promote you 24/7. No employee will do that. And I think the idea is that a website works so hard for you. And I think that people often think of a website as a tick box. Let's build it, let's put it up online, and it will kind of just do the job. I think it is so underrated in terms of its power and what it can do for you. So in the next few slides, I'm going to talk to you about what really should stand out in terms of design development, and then how you can convert your website visitors into a sale, into a lead, into a booking. And so first of all, let's talk a little bit about development. And when I talk about development, I could go on for ages, but I just wanted to focus on these key areas. So one of the most important things we're seeing in terms of trends is load speed. So this may come as a shock to a few people, but your website should be loading in less than 2 seconds. And the idea is that if it's not, you're probably going to lose customers. And I'll show you in a second how there have been studies done that if your website takes long to load, people actually drop off or they won't purchase. And more importantly, and we'll talk about it when we get to the SEO section, Google now penalizes you in terms of your search ranking if your website does not load quickly. And what I've actually done is I have put a link at the bottom of the training manual to a website load speed test. And you can go and test your website and see how quickly it loads. And again, you know, don't, if it's slightly over 2 or, you know, it's slightly less, just, you know, obviously there has to be a benchmark. But if you are really concerned by how slowly your website's loading, I would definitely get you to talk to whoever developed your website, because that is just such an important factor, especially because we now have Wi-Fi everywhere, we have fast internet connections, people expect a website that loads quickly. So the next thing is mobile compatibility. Now, this was huge a few years ago, and yet it still seems to have not resonated with everyone. So your website has to be mobile optimized. And what I've actually done is, I will just show you quickly. I'm just going to jump off, is there is this cool little link, and it's, hopefully you can all see that it says mobile friendly test. Bex, give me a shout if you can't. But the idea is that you can go and test your website to see if it's mobile friendly, and you can actually test every single page. It's a free tool from Google. So I'm going to check Afundi, be earth-shattering if this came back negatively. But the idea is that you can actually go test if your website is mobile friendly. Fantastic. Mine is. I feel much better about myself. So after this, I would say go and check all of your pages on your website and check if they're mobile friendly. And the reason you'd want to check is because you want to make sure that your site is mobile friendly, because more than 50% of all traffic is now coming from mobile. And if it's not mobile friendly, people tend to just leave your site immediately. Movement and animation. This is the exciting part of development. You don't have to have just a static website. You can now have movement, animation. And what that does is it helps people move through each critical communication element. And so I think what we're seeing is that movement and animation is like the biggest asset that designers and developers have, really brings a website to life. So if you have a website that you think is a little bit boring, it doesn't have any nice movement or any animation, then, you know, again, maybe it's time for a new site, or you need to get in touch with someone in terms of helping you. Safety and security. So we're big on that at Afundi. You know, a lot of people focus on what we call the pretty pictures and making things look nice. but we're all about safety and security. And it's mainly because people are now so much more aware about their safety online. So you'll notice that now Google, if you don't have an SSL certificate, which if you look at the top of any sort of website, there's always that little lock, and it represents that your information is encrypted. And the idea is that if you don't have that, again, Google is going to start penalizing websites for not having one. And so if you don't have one, talk to your host, whoever hosts your website. And another key thing about safety and security is making sure that you're really clear about how you use and store customer data. So if you don't have a privacy policy on your website, or you're not making it clear, I really, really encourage you to go out. There's some great free resources out there, but make it clear to customers. You know, the other day I went to purchase something online. I just wasn't happy with the lack of transparency about what they were doing with my credit card details. So I ended up not purchasing, and I went to another supplier. So they lost a sale because they just weren't transparent about how they were using my data. Your website needs to be search worthy. Now, this is such a broad statement, but the idea is that if you have a website, it should be built in such a way that search engines can crawl the information on your site. And so if you have concerns about that, it's probably something to talk to your developer about or your designer about. Alternatively, get in touch and I'll see if I can help. But it needs to be built on a great platform. It needs to be built with the right sort of framework. And if it's done well, it means that you stand a better chance when it comes to your search ranking. And the last thing is clear and easy to use navigation. So my pet hate is if you go onto a website and you can't navigate through. So I'm going to show you a website that we recently built because I really like the navigation structure. So again, we're just going to jump across. So I'm not sure if you've seen Cycle360's new website, but what they have is what we call a sticky navigation. And so as you scroll through, the navigation follows you through your journey. And what's great about that is that at any time you can navigate throughout the site. And I think it's really important to have a nice navigation, because if you don't, you tend to find that people get lost in your site. So clear, easy to use navigation. Another tip there is make sure that when you name anything in your navigation, you don't get too fancy. I've seen websites lately where they name their different pages or tabs, something that just isn't intuitive. So look out for that. Next, we're going to jump into design. Sorry, we've actually got an awesome stat here. So I found this online from Loadstorm, and basically it says 1 in 4 visitors would abandon a website that takes more than 4 seconds to load. So you have a 1 in 4 chance of losing someone if your website isn't loading quickly. And there's a few other stats there, but the idea is we're all super impatient. So load speed is just so important. So when it comes to design, now design is subjective. It gives me the most headaches when it comes to anything I do to do with websites or branding, because some people like purple, some people like red, some people like round, some people like squares. So the idea is that design is subjective. However, there are some trends and some standards that you really could sort of meet and stick to that will help you in terms of your design of your site. So the first thing is eye-catching headlines. So what we're seeing is that there's a massive trend towards typography. So it's not just about images, it's actually also about really great headlines that sort of, draw people into your copy. You also want to use high quality imagery. Now, I think that there was always a misconception. High quality imagery, really expensive. But there's some great sites out there. I don't know if you've ever heard of Unsplash, but you can get free, royalty-free images on there, and they are high quality and they are awesome. And I'll put the link to Unsplash actually in the chat at the end. But the idea is that you don't now have to pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds for high quality imagery. And the same goes for photographers on Ireland. There's so many great photographers. So if you want to do product photography, or you want to do team photos, I really think you should do professional ones. It goes a long way. Videos. Now, videos are huge, and I think we all see that. We see it especially when it comes to trying to sell products. Everything now is video orientated. The appropriate use of color. So again, this is subjective, but color is something that you can use to kind of draw people into your website. And actually that brings me to a really interesting stat. Google did a sort of case study not so long ago, and they basically said that a user has something like 0.3 milliseconds that they actually connect with a website or not. And you can just imagine that's so quick that it's really going to come down to the visual aspects of your site. So it's going to come down to color, imagery. And so the use of color is just so important. Cohesive design and consistent layouts. I think the whole idea is that what you want to do is you want to make sure that throughout your website, you have really cohesive design. You don't want to vary too much from your sort of core design. Otherwise, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And then you want to be creative. And this is a site that I'm just going to quickly show you here. But Scott Resort, I found their site the other day. Don't ask why I'm looking at holiday websites. But what I loved about this is the simplicity of when you arrived and you see this typography, and then obviously you're able to quickly watch the video, which you can do in full screen, or you can watch it auto playing there. And then when I went through the site, I just loved the simplicity and the layout of all of the different content elements, and use of full bleed imagery, use of different colors, use of video, use of nice big call to actions. So if you're ever looking for inspiration, you may want to go to a website called AWW Awards or Awards. And the idea is this is an industry sort of body that you can submit your website to. Most agencies do this, and then it gets ranked by the public and by a panel. And the idea is that if you go through, you can often find amazing inspiration, and you can actually go into different categories. So you may, for example, want to search restaurants, and then you'll be able to get inspiration for restaurant websites. And, again, it's just, these sites are like the cream of the crop. So it's just something that you could go and look at if you're looking to build a new website. Now, I do see we've got a question there about how to balance high quality video and animation with fast loading speeds. That it is a tricky one. However, it all comes down to your developer and your hosting environment. So we host with something like AWS's cloud infrastructure. And what we try and do is we try and make sure that we, throughout the development process, are testing, the load speed throughout. And it may be, for example, with your video, you want to host those on something like YouTube or Vimeo. And then with your animation, it's about balance. So I think it's quite a technical question. And I know the person that asked it is anonymous, but if you want to chat specifically about the subject, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, and maybe also do a few tests on your site so we can evaluate if there are any issues. But it comes down to how you host it, how you develop it, and also it's about balance. So not too much video, not too much animation, but just the perfect combination so you don't have to compromise on performance. So I hope that answers your question, but if not, just get in touch. So next up, we're going to speak about website conversion. Now, I've mentioned this, I think, in the beginning, that a lot of people will build a website, they'll put it online, and then they kind of forget about it. And unfortunately, a website actually is something that is a continuous investment. You should be investing in it all the time. That doesn't always mean money, but it does mean time, and it does mean looking at your objectives and trying to understand if your objectives are being met. So website conversion is basically what happens when someone completes a predetermined sort of action. So that could be that your website is sales driven. So that's going to be someone coming onto your website, purchasing a product or purchasing a service. Or it could be that someone comes onto your website and gives you their contact details. So essentially a lead. Now, website conversion is a tricky subject because it is always very dependent on your particular category and industry, and then what your predetermined action is. But what we'll do is we'll go through a few things that are kind of the general, you need to do these things if you want great conversion. So the first thing is call to actions. Now, you'll hear people say CTAs or calls to action. And I think the idea is they can be call to action, calls to action, but it is basically an instruction that you are giving the user through some sort of action. So you're saying, buy now, download, shop now. And normally they are housed in like a button. So it's normally like a nice standout button, whether that be using color or animation. Like you see the example there, there's a little animated shop now. But calls to action are just so important. And I often look at websites and see that they have this beautifully written piece of content, and then they don't have a call to action. So it can be find out more, meet the team, get in touch, submit, sign up. But the idea is don't be scared to use your calls to action, and don't think that there's too many. Yes, obviously you can go way too far with them, but I think you need to make sure that throughout your website and each critical communication element, there's the appropriate call to action. And that's the way you're going to get a lead or you're going to get a sale. And so go back, look at your website and analyze, are my calls to action really clear? You know, do they stand out in terms of the context of my site? And do they make sense? I hate it when there's something like read more, and then it takes you to a page that is not consistent in terms of it flows from the copy section before. So just make sure your call to action is always appropriate and it stands out. The next thing is going to be testimonials. So I think we all know nowadays, I don't know if you know the stat, but it's something like 10 to 15 reviews are read before someone books a holiday. That was ages ago, 2 years ago when we were booking holidays. But the idea is that if you have testimonials or any sort of customer reviews on your website, you're more likely to convert. So when people are purchasing, you'll often find, like on Amazon, you go and you read all of the reviews before you actually purchase the product. And what makes a good testimonial review is if it is linked to something credible. So I have an example here, Bobby Jones of What's Accounts. So if he wrote an actual testimonial, you may want to link his name back to his LinkedIn profile if he gives you permission, or back to his company website. That will also have SEO benefits, and we'll talk a little bit about backlinks in a second. But the idea is that testimonials or any sort of review or any commentary by your customers or your peers will help people to trust you, and therefore they're more likely to give you information or to buy a product. Next up, create engaging quality content. And I found this little image ages ago, probably about maybe 8 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. And I just think it's so important, you know, what you want to say, what they're interested in, and the relevance. And I think the idea is that your content that you're sharing is what's going to engage people, and we'll talk further about that. But if your website doesn't have engaging content that's well written, that's obviously got real purpose and is sales driven without being too pushy, then, you know, if you don't have that, you'll probably find that you are not converting as well, because you're not taking people on a journey. Good quality imagery, videos, all of that, again, will engage your audience and hopefully give them the comfort to say, hey, these people know what they're doing, or these products look great, or this is the restaurant I want to go to, so I'm going to book. So it really is about good quality content and about changing content. So you want to make sure that your content is always up to date. Next, going back to what I spoke about under development, navigation is just so important. And I think the reason for that is if you don't have easy navigation, how can you expect someone to easily find a product or easily get in touch with you? So I often do a little test, and I've put a tip down there that says, write down a few objectives on a piece of paper, that you think customers or users will be looking for on your site. So it could be someone wants to find out your phone number, or someone wants to find a specific service or a specific product. And then go to your website and see how many clicks or how easy it is to find. And the idea, if it's too hard to find or if it's too many clicks, then you tend to lose people, because people get frustrated and they'll go to competitors or they'll jump off. And an example of this is, I love the Z Hotel website, and one of the things that they've done is, you could be sitting on their site and there's this little section where it goes, okay, well, you're coming to stay with us at the hotel, but what do you want to do when you're in Victoria? So where can I go in Victoria, or where can I eat? And it immediately brings back in one click some restaurants. Where can I drink? Brings back some bars. And the idea is that it's just such a quick, simple one click away to find that important content. And so I think maybe go back after this, do a little test, and don't take for granted that you know where things are on your website. You may even want to ask family and friends, or do a little like workshop, even with clients, and say, well, how easily did you find our application form, or how easy was it to find out more about the history of our business? And you'll be surprised that even though you think it's easy to find, your customers may not find it as easy to find. So going back here, skipped one. So you also want to simplify your user journey. Now, the idea there is, again, is to make it so easy for someone to actually convert on your website. So for example, if you have a form, are you asking too much? Do you have too many form fields? Remember, more form fields means more drop-offs. And I put this little thing at the bottom there that says more fields equals more effort equals more drop-offs and abandoned carts or forms. And so the idea is only ask what is completely necessary. I've gone onto websites before where the form is just so convoluted that I just give up before I've even started. Now, the flip side of that is, if you need any of that core information in order to get back to your customers, so if you have a sales process where you need to qualify that lead, then of course ask the questions, but it's all about balance. Next up, you want to check that if you have a sales-driven website in terms of products or any sort of checkout, is your checkout process simple? I tried, again, you can tell I've been buying things. I think we all have during lockdown. I was on a website the other day and I counted that it took me 12 steps to check out. And I was so frustrated by the end because it was just so convoluted and not user-friendly at all. So again, look at how easy it is to get in touch, book, check out. And when it comes to payment integration, make sure it's trusted. Make sure you are clear about how you're taking payment, how you're storing that credit card details. I look all the time. So I'm always looking at how people are going to use my data. Obviously, I'm probably one of the extreme cases, but I do think people are becoming a lot more aware. Then what you want to do is also, if you've got gated content, as in a piece of content on your website that you're asking for information in order to give it to them, then make sure it's not 5 clicks away. One of the biggest issues people have is they create awesome blogs or they create awesome downloads or resources, and then they hide them 5 clicks in. You know, if you have a really important piece of content, you may even want to consider a landing page. That way you can direct people straight to this landing page, which will be really targeted to your audience. And that way someone gets on, reads the information, gives their email address or any information that you are asking for, and they can quickly get that download. And so I just think, again, do a test on your own website, or if you're looking to develop a website, make sure you actually plot out the user journey. Someone's going to arrive on the homepage. Then I want them to go to the service page. I then from there want them to go to the contact form and get in touch about that specific service. So actually start drawing out what your user journey will look like. Now, the next thing we're going to jump onto is social media. If there's any questions about websites, that has been like a whistle-stop tour of websites. And it's really because I just wanted to focus really on conversion and some of the high level points. However, If you're super interested in websites, or if you want to make improvements, or if you're looking to build a new site, I am doing a course on Wednesday afternoon that is only about websites. So we're going to really drill into what makes a great website, go into some technical elements, answer questions like we spoke about earlier in terms of high quality video and animation, talk about hosting, maintenance. So if you have an interest in websites, or if you want to improve yours, then we can dive into it deeper on Wednesday. So next up, we got media. Excuse me. So I'm not going to go into huge detail about each platform. And I know Kirsty did like an amazing job, I think a week or two ago, in terms of Facebook. What I'm going to talk about is about an engaged audience. So I'm not going to talk about anything technical. I'm just going to focus on social media as a whole. But what I think is important is, I love this saying. It says social media is the ultimate equalizer. It gives a voice and a platform to anyone willing to engage. So I really believe that social media is an even playing field. Of course, there is paid elements of social, and therefore more budget, more results. But I think organically, there is a great platform and a great opportunity for people. And so today, what I want to talk about specifically is about engagement, and how do you get your audience to engage? And the idea is if you get your audience to engage, you can probably drive traffic back to your website, where you can convert them into a sale, into a lead, etc. And so first you need to understand, what is an engaged audience? An engaged audience is someone that it's a meaningful and valuable connection. It's someone that comments, likes, shares your post, someone that interacts with you. Don't confuse engagement with something like, I've got 1,000 followers, I must be doing well. I'd rather have 1,000 followers or 100 followers, but have a great engagement rate, because what you want is quality engagement, not quantity. And an engaged audience is going to serve you well. They are the ones that are going to be your brand advocates. They are the ones who are going to purchase your products. And so how do you engage your audience? First up, you need to have a strategy for engagement. So it goes back to that main strategy, but you could have a section that's specific to social media. And during that creation of that strategy, maybe do a little subset. What is social media? What is my strategy specifically for social media? So it could be to create a better understanding of your product. It could be to develop new relationships. It could be to educate your customer. So you could take a real like education and knowledge-based approach to it. It could be that you just want to get feedback and gain insights. So, you could be asking your customers to, for their opinion on new products or services. It could be also to engage your staff. So to create that sort of culture of fun and show a different side of the business. It could be just to give the human feel to the brand. I'm going to show you some examples shortly of some really successful brands on social media. And what they all have is they all have a human element. So they've really made sure that they don't sound like they're just some robot or someone sitting behind a screen. They actually feel like they have a personality. And so every time you post on social media, you should be coming back to these sort of goals and your strategy and saying, is this post ticking the boxes? Is it feeding back into my overall strategy? So some tips could be, first and foremost, like develop your voice. What is your voice online? One of the most, I think, frustrating things is I can often see where people don't have a voice on social media. And what that then tends to do is that people don't feel that that brand is trusted. And again, human element gives you a voice. So do you want to be cool and playful and quirky, or do you want to be professional and bold? I think the idea is that once you develop a voice, it makes writing your posts and creating your content so much easier, because you know how you want to sound. And again, go back to your customer persona. What does your customer want to hear? Do they want to hear fun and playful, or do they want something a little bit more authoritative and professional? And one of my favorite brands on social is Innocent Smoothies. And I'm sure a lot of you follow them. but they have just created such an amazing presence online because they have just been so quirky and fun. And in the end of the day, they are just selling drinks, but they have created an entire world of fun. And, you know, like this example here where it says, "Hey, Innocent, I love your drinks. Can I make a suggestion, please?" Instead of just going back and saying, "Yeah, tell us about it," they said, "Go ahead, Pete. We're all ears. In fact, in the interest of accuracy, we're not quite all ears. We're legs as well, arms, hands too. Don't forget heads. You get the idea. Anyway, we're listening." And so they just have so much personality. And I think if you ever want to feel inspired, follow someone like Innocent. It may not be exactly what you can achieve in terms of your brand and your customers. However, you can take inspiration from the fact that they're always consistent and they stick to their tone of voice. They don't try to get too serious. They kind of always take the mickey out of themselves. And I just love it. So another thing that you want to do is you want to sort of produce really, really great content, because the things that people share is great content. So the idea is that you want to really start looking at doing things like asking questions online. Don't be afraid to say, "Hey guys, we're having a debate in the office. Do you like A or B?" Ask your customers, see what their response is. You know, run polls, utilize things like Facebook polling. It's such a cool, quirky way of getting insight and using technology to do it. You may want to post user-generated content. So Innocent does that really well. A lot of the photos that people post and tag them in, they actually share that. And so what it does is it also takes the pressure off you to continuously have to create and post your own content. You may want to show behind the scenes. You may want to do a social media takeover. I think that works really well. So, you know, I think Chamber may have done it few months back, where, you know, someone took over social media and shows a day in the life of different businesses. Bex, if you haven't done that, definitely think you should. And the idea is that it just gives you something different and a variety on your content. You may want to partner with another brand. You know, that's something that I think is so underutilized locally. Find another brand where there's the synergy and run a competition, or do a workshop online, or find a way to combine. And then obviously just make sure that you're always listening to what's out there and jumping on it. So this is one of the examples I've been using for years. And it's actually all the way, I think, 2014. So it was the Grammys. And I don't know if anyone saw this, but Pharrell arrived in that pretty ridiculous looking hat, which Arby's, which is a restaurant in America, thought looked ridiculously close to their own logo. And so they tweeted, "Hey Pharrell, can we have our hat back?" And you won't believe it, it was the most retweeted and shared sort of tweet from the Grammys, even though Arby's has nothing to do with music. And the backstory is that Pharrell then said, "Well, yeah, you can have the hat back, but you're going to have to pay for it." And cut a long story short, they actually auctioned the hat for charity. And what is so amazing is that someone had to be really quick and on the ball to actually put that out there. And so it's just a lesson in trying to stay, you know, aware of what's going out in the world and then jumping on opportunities. So here's some just overall tips, like day-to-day, what can you do? Please respond to comments. I notice that all the time. People don't like to respond to comments, and actually it's good comments that seem to go lonely. It's bad comments that people normally jump on. Respond to comments, good or bad, because your customers then will know that you're listening. And if you're listening, they're probably going to be more inclined to talk to you. Keep your response time speedy. I posted a restaurant review, I think it was last year in November, and only recently did someone comment on it. And it just, it made me giggle, because it does seem a little bit like, well, I've forgotten about that now. It would have been great to have it in the first, let's say, week of me posting it. Listen for opportunities and act quickly, which is exactly what I just spoke about. And be agile in your approach. You know, if you are posting a certain type of content and it's not working, you're not getting likes and comments, don't flog a dead horse. Try something new. Obviously, don't be too sporadic and do something and then don't give it time to gain traction, but don't flog a dead horse. and be consistent. I think that when anyone starts social media, they always like, oh, I'm going to post 3 times a week. And then things get busy and it becomes once a week, then it becomes once every 2 weeks. Consistency is absolutely key. You then also want to provide value with absolutely everything that you're posting. So it comes back to your customer persona. So if you're putting something out there, is it going to be valuable to your audience? And so what you want to make sure is that everything that you're putting out there actually has purpose. Yeah, sometimes you can be fun and quirky and lighthearted, but make sure that the majority of your posts actually have value. So if someone reads it, are they going to say, I'm so glad I read that? So I see questions come in from Stephen about best tools to track comments across multiple channels. So probably Hootsuite or something like that. Although there are some social listening tools that take it a step further, where they actually listen to what's being said, not just on social media, but what's being said on forums, depending on whether that forum is a public forum. But what I can do, Stephen, is actually at the end is send you some links to some different platforms. But I'd say Hootsuite's probably one of the best and probably one of the trusted platforms. But again, you know, it's also dependent. I'm inclined to sometimes say that if you have a limited amount of social media channels and you have the time, it's sometimes great to be on the platform. I tend to have issues when you do have a listening tool or something that aggregates all of your social media into one. And it's because you can lose touch with what's happening right there and then. So I think, you know, everything has its place, but maybe have a balance where you have something that listens, but also then something, you know, spend time going onto the platform and interacting. So I see Bex has put a link to Hootsuite, so thanks for that. Another quick example on social media before we jump onto the next subject is, I love this, in 2013, if you're watching the Super Bowl, you may remember that the lights went out. And literally within minutes, Oreo put this out and it said, power out, you can still dunk in the dark. Another completely awesome sort of example of how if you're out there and you're listening and you kind of have your finger on the pulse, these opportunities are out there. And you can see just from that image there, it made headlines across Wall Street Journal to BuzzFeed, Bloomberg, because it was just so perfectly done and so on time. And so one of the things about social media is that you do have to invest time in terms of you need to be on the platforms, you need to be listening. It's not good enough to just post something, log off and go away. Unfortunately, you need to be interacting. Otherwise, you will miss these sorts of opportunities. So next up, we are going to talk a little bit about content marketing. And before we do that, if anyone is interested in drilling down more into social media in terms of looking at the stats and looking at whether it's successful, then that course on Friday may be good for you, because again, we look at analytics associated specifically with social media. And if you have any questions on social, again, reach out. Happy for you to send me an email. It is a minefield, so there's so much I could have covered, but what I tried to do there is just tie it into what you could do in terms of engagement. So next up, we're going to talk about content marketing. Now, content marketing is one of those things that's sort of always, it's kind of overshadowed by the fact that people do social media marketing or digital marketing, but basically what it is, it's about creating great content. And we've touched on that throughout, but the idea is that if you have a clearly defined audience and you have a great strategy and you create great content, then you'll probably get leads and customers that will engage with you. I've put a cute little image there that just says the difference between traditional marketing and content marketing, which you can look through. But, you know, it comes back to what makes content great. It matters to your customers. So we're going back to that value. Are you actually giving your customers value when you post? And is it backed by expertise? The one thing that I get so disheartened by is when companies or brands comment on things that they don't actually fully grasp. And you must remember that your customers are often taking what you say as word. So it is a big responsibility. So just make sure everything you put out there is backed by expertise or backed by stats. Once it's out there, it's out there. And so just make sure that you're looking at that each time. Make sure it's sales driven, but not too sales driven. You know, you have to really have a balance when you create content. You want things to be sales driven so you can get that conversion, that lead or that sale, but you don't want to come across too salesy. So you just got to find that right balance for you. You need to also make sure that your content's easy to understand. Clients often send me blogs to post on their website, and I read it and I'm just a bit mind blown at how technical it is. So there's definitely a place for technical content, but you just have to make sure that you're not going too technical, because people will disengage with you if they find that it's not easy to consume. And you want to make it regular. So when we talk about things like algorithms on social media or on search engines, the more regular you are in terms of posting content, the better your results are. So there's quite a few studies saying that if you stick to certain days, certain times, or certain frequency, you actually get more success. So going back to your strategy and your plan, I would suggest that you sit down and you say, right, I'm going to post on these days, or I'm going to post 1 blog a week or 2 blogs a month, or whatever it is, and try and stick to that. Make sure it's well written. Spelling, such a big bugbear of mine. I've probably now made a spelling error in here just to spite myself, but make sure that when you're putting any content out there, you do spell check and you just check the grammar, because people pick that up and they'll quickly disengage with your content if they see anything like a spelling error. And then obviously any piece of content essentially that you put out there, you want it to be shareable. So if you're sending an email, you want people to forward it. If you're posting on Facebook, you want people to share it. And when people share content, it's normally because it's comical, or it's thought-provoking, or it's funny, or it's educational, or it's aspirational. So when you look at your piece of content, say, would I share this? Would my customers share that? And I think that's really, really key. Now, some tips for you in terms of content marketing day to day. The first thing I would say is create a content calendar. So I have a calendar for all my clients and for myself, and I literally plot out the month, and I say, well, I'm going to post a blog on this day on my website, and I'm going to share it on social media. And then on this day, I'm going to put out an Instagram post, and on this day I'm going to send my advert to print. Whatever you're doing, make sure that it's planned, because the first thing to go when you get busy is normally marketing, especially if you're small business. So if you have a content calendar, then you have a plan to work towards, and I think it also gives you that structure. You're not trying to think about it on the 12th hour. You can actually prepare your blog a week before. So content calendar is really, really great. And then make sure your content is aligned with your marketing objectives. So again, before you post, check your strategy and your objectives. Does it meet any of your objectives? Yes, it does. Post away. Use lists. So unfortunately, we're all becoming quite lazy when it comes to consuming content. So the most I'd say engaging content nowadays in the written form is if you do things like top 10 reasons, or here's 3 top tips, or follow our list of things to do. Immediately when someone sees lists or it's quantified, they then have a perception that it's not just going to be this long form of reading, and it really then makes people more receptive to actually spend time reading your content. And maybe sometimes what you can do is invite guests to write content for you or to share video. Sometimes that change in voice is a nice escape. So although you want to have a continuous and strong voice, you can introduce third parties, because people will understand that they'll have a slightly different voice or tone to you. And so it's really nice to sometimes invite, like for example, for us, we could invite a client onto a workshop like this to possibly, testify to the work that we've done for them. And that gives people a little bit of a change of voice and a little bit more variety. And use third-party content. I think a lot of people work really hard to create their own content, but go and find third-party content and share it. Don't claim it, share it. So the idea is that you could share a piece of news that's relevant to your industry, or if it's something to do with the Isle of Man and you think that your customers and your followers will appreciate it, then share that. You don't always have to produce your own first-person content. And if you do not share third-party content, I can guarantee you're going to start to get really fatigued in terms of creating new content. And so I think what I did, do here is, this is really high level, but I have put a link at the bottom to a really nice sort of blog about content marketing and what you can do to inspire yourself to create new content. So definitely go have a read of that. Now, other ideas that you could post, infographics, videos, podcasts, guides, white papers. So I've put some examples there. And I found this pyramid, and I found it really interesting, because what this pyramid is basically saying is that for your different types of content, what is the effort that it takes to produce them, and how often should you be producing them? So right at the top there is like your books or your ebooks or your white papers. Now, obviously those take quite a bit of time to create. So that's high effort, and you're probably only going to post those, let's say, once a quarter. But if you go right down to the bottom, doing a social media post, that's something that should be low effort, and therefore you should be doing it often. So I just thought that was a nice little like graphic to show you where you should be sitting in terms of sharing content. So when you put your plan together, maybe have that pyramid up and say, well, don't set yourself an impossible task. Don't say, I'm going to create a white paper or an ebook each month. If you can, phenomenal, but rather be realistic and say, well, where does each element of this content sit in my overall plan and in my calendar? So I think, again, with content marketing, it really has to all tie into what is your overall objective. Now, next up is going to be search engine optimization. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So with SEO, absolute minefield. It's still one of those subjects that when clients speak to me about it, they always look scared. I always see this face of like, this is a minefield, but it isn't, and it is. So there are some real technical elements to do with SEO, but there's also just some basic things that you could be doing, and I'm confident all of you could be doing these things. That will actually help you in terms of where you rank on search engines. So what is search engine optimization? It's the process of affecting the visibility of your website in a search result. So if you go into Google and you put in something like Restaurants Isle of Man, it's the results that appear. Now, search engine optimization involves so many different things, from the content that you post, to the website, to how it's built, to the content on your website, to social media, to reviews, to traffic. But today we're just going to focus on some key areas, because what I don't want to do is overwhelm you. If you can get these basics right, and then you feel like you're in a strong position, get in touch with a SEO specialist, or get in touch with an agency if you want to take your SEO to the next level. So let's get started. So I just did this is a little video that you can see. I did cars for sale, and what I really want to show, I'll start it again in case you missed that it was a video. So I'm just going to pause it there. So I put in cars for sale, and what you will see, oh, it's on the blink. What you will see is that nowadays, organic search results, as in not paid adverts, are sitting really far down in the page. So the idea, I'll play it again if you want to watch it. The idea is that as you arrive, you've got 2 ads. You've then got results that are to do with your location, and then only do you have organic results. And so what this really means is that you almost have to try and make sure that your website is ranking either on the first page or within the first few pages. Because if someone is searching, they're probably going to click on one of the ads, or they're going to click on something to do with geolocation. So the ones that pop up based on where you're searching from. So they are the results that are closest to. So if you want to rank highly, you're probably going to need to do a bit of work. You can't just rely on and hope that you're going to rank. And so the first part of that is keywords. So this is probably one of the most key components, keywords, key components. I see what I did there. And these are essentially the terms that people are looking for. So a lot of people think keyword creation is really complicated and technical. It actually doesn't have to be. what you could do right now is you could take out a piece of paper and you could say, if people were looking for my business or my products, what would they search for? And you could create a list. So in my case, it would be website development, it would be digital marketing, it would be design, it would be branding, it would be an ad agency. And the idea is that you can write all of these sort of keywords down, and that should be your keyword Bible. It should be the list that you always refer to. So that keyword list is so important, because when you write your copy for your website, so that's the copy that sits on the pages of your website, you need to make sure those keywords are included. When you write on social media, you need to make sure those keywords are included. When you write blogs or any sort of dynamic content, you need to make sure those keywords are included. And so obviously, everything within reason. You don't want to overkill keywords, but it's really important to know what those keywords and key search terms are. And what you can do is use something like Google's Keyword Planner. And what you can do is you put in your keywords, so the search terms you have come up with, and it will actually show you related terms. So it will give you ideas and suggestions of other things that people may be searching for that is similar. And what Google's Keyword Planner also does is it shows you how relevant that search term is, how much competition there is around that. And if you want to do some paid for sort of SEO when it comes to like Google AdWords or PPC, it will also tell you how much a keyword will cost you, as in what is the bid for that. But let's not go too far down the line. Let's just stick to, you can create your own list of keywords that people would search for, and you can then obviously use that when you generate any content or when you put your website together. And those keywords should always be changing. And what you may want to do is also ask your customers, if you've got great relationships with a customer, you may say, well, when you were looking for us, what did you search for? You may want to ask your staff, and you may just want to do some tests, start searching online and see what comes back. And a good tip there is, if you want to know how well you're doing in terms of where you rank for certain key search terms, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you open a private tab, so a incognito tab or a private tab, so there's no history within that tab, and then search for key terms. Because if you're just using your normal Google where you've searched before, it will return results that it's already returned. So open up a private tab and type in, I don't know, marketing Isle of Man, and see what the results are. And that's a way to sort of gauge how you're doing in terms of search. There are some great platforms like SEMrush, which I've linked further down, where you can go in and you can actually have an active role in your SEO and your keywords. But I think just as a basic, create a list and make sure you're continuously using that. I see a question has come in. Google Keyword Planner and Google Ads are not available for my Gmail. Apparently this is a common problem for Isle of Man registered accounts. Alex, I haven't personally experienced that, but it is something that I'm happy to look into. I do have a relationship with a Google account manager, in essence, for some of the PPC campaigns we run. So what I'll do is I'll pose that question to them and find out why that is. But personally, I haven't encountered that issue, but I'll come back to you on that one, Alex. If anyone else is experiencing the same thing, maybe just pop it in there. So that way I've got a little bit more ammunition to say, well, I did a training, there were 70 people on it, and 5 people said that they don't have access to that. So yeah, just pop me a message on the chat or on the Q&A section. So content is king. So one of the things that you can do to dramatically improve where you rank is to produce dynamic content and changing content. So that's posting on social media, that's posting on your blog, that is making sure that there is always new news or resources on your website. So when search engines like Google evaluate your website in terms of search ranking, they look at how often it's being updated. So the more updates you're making and the more relevant your content, the better for your SEO. So again, you want to use your keywords, but you also want to make sure there's a steady flow of content. And what underpins that all is that you want to make sure the content on your website is up to date. And so Google will penalize you if you have pages that have out of date content. And so it's making sure that you are continuously keeping your site up to date. So whether that's making sure that if a team member leaves or staff member leaves, that you remove them from the website, making sure that don't have anything on there that dates back that is irrelevant, because Google will penalize you there. So the next thing you can do is make sure your website is mobile optimized. So in 2020, I think it was in September, Google announced that they will be ranking websites mobile first, which means they will be looking at the mobile version of your website before your desktop version. So if your website is not mobile optimized, you will be penalized. So I've reiterated this test. I've put it in there. Make sure you go and test. If your website is not mobile optimized, you need to make a change, because it will affect where you rank. It will affect your user experience. But honestly, it's probably one of the most important things to look at. So make sure your website is mobile optimized. Okay, now this is something that some of you may have control over and some of you might not, but I thought I would cover it. But each website, when you have a page on a website, or if you have a blog or a piece of content or a post that you're adding to a website, you should be able to do the SEO setup. Now, we use WordPress for some of our marketing websites. We also use Laravel for some of our sort of bigger systems. But the idea is that every time you have a page or a post, you should be doing the SEO setup. Now, one of the things we use for WordPress is a really well-known and safe plugin called Yoast. It's probably the most popular SEO plugin for WordPress. And we take a really minimal approach to using plugins. We actually hardly ever use plugins when we build WordPress sites, because we build from scratch. But Yoast is one of those things where it's just so good that we always include it. And the idea is that every time you post something, or you set up a page, you set up what we call the meta description and all of the data that all of the search engines will look for when they return results. So if you look on the right-hand side there, you'll see it says, this is just a example, and you can see that will look familiar because that is a search result. And so when you set your sort of SEO bits on your page or on your post, you need to do 4 key things. First, you need to make sure that your page is named something appropriate. Nothing worse than seeing a link or a page title that is Marketing for Dummies 1295756 AAC. That is really bad for search. So make sure the link and your actual page title is well worded, is concise, and gives the user and search engines a clear understanding of what content lies on that page. What you also want to do is use that awesome list of keywords you're going to have. And so if you're writing a blog about SEO, you're going to want to make sure that search engine optimization is your keyword or your key phrase. And so you can actually input that into your Yoast plugin or similar. Different websites will have different setup, but make sure you have your keyword or key search term there. Then you do your SEO title. Now that can be different to your page title. And what's sometimes quite nice with that is that you can change it up that it's really like stand out and user friendly. So like this example, Yoast SEO for WordPress, the definitive how-to guide, really punchy, you know exactly what you're getting into. You can also sometimes add your location. So if you want to put like marketing agency Isle of Man, you may want to include that to really help in terms of your geolocation, in terms of Google returning search results based on where you're positioned, where the user is positioned. And then you put your meta description. Now, when you write a meta description, it really needs to be short and sweet, and it should be an explanation to the user of what is on this page on your website. And so the idea is you need to make it short and sweet, but not too short and sweet that it doesn't give enough away. Now, if you use something like Yoast, what's really great is that you'll see over there, it gives you green lines. So basically it's saying, this is great. If it's in red, it's bad. Orange, you're hitting the middle line. And so if you have a WordPress website and you're not using Yoast, it's definitely something I would look into. And if you have another platform, I would speak to your development agency and say, are we, have we set up all of this per page? Do we have a meta description per page? And if not, I would really, really encourage you to go and invest time in doing this, because I often see search results where I can see nothing's been done. And if you don't set this up, then Google will just auto-populate anything that they want. And sometimes that doesn't have the desired result. And so really, I think if you can look at the keywords, you can look at your content, and you can do this setup, you'll probably see an improvement on your site. The other thing is, what you're probably going to want to do is just make sure in general you have no broken links on your website. So Google is taking that pretty seriously in terms of, if someone clicks on a link from search and arrives on your website and it takes you to a 404 error page, you're going to be penalized for that. So just make sure you don't have broken links on your website or buttons that don't work. Load speed. So when it comes to SEO, that's a big one. Another big tip is to list your company on Google Business Places. So if you haven't done that, definitely do it, because they are taking that into account. The same with Google reviews. So, I said to Nick, my business partner, recently, we need to get our clients to leave us Google reviews, because they're always giving us testimonials in email or online, but actually Google reviews really help from an SEO point of view. So encourage your clients to leave you Google reviews. Now, another little tip is to name your images. So when you upload an image onto your website, make sure that you set something called an alt tag. So when you go onto the back end of your website after this training, see if you have something called an alt tag. And basically what you want to do is you want to name it something that people would search for. So go back to your keywords. And that way, if someone used Google Images, which I often do to search for content, so I might put in SEO in Google Images and I look at, let's say, an infographic, and then from there I click to the source, as in the website. So what you want to make sure is that your images are named well. Don't name them photograph 123 or Jess screenshot 9. Make sure they have a relevant name. Then you want to stay active on social. So social media does impact SEO. And sometimes you'll see that your Facebook page is ranking higher than your website. Not ideal, but at least you're going to have a presence. Again, comes back to sharing a lot of content. And then last, try and get your website listed on third-party websites. And basically that's called backlinks. So what you want to do is maybe see if there's an industry body, like Chamber, for example. So I often look at my Google Analytics and I see the traffic has come from Chamber's website. And that's awesome. And I think if you have Google Analytics, and again, we'll talk about that on Friday if you're joining me, we'll look at how important backlinks are. So even if you're linking to, from social media, the idea that someone's linking from social media back to your site. So, with SEO, it is a massive subject, and that probably was either scared you or inspired you. There's probably no way about it. But I think the idea is if you can just do those basics right, then once you've done that and you still feel like you're not ranking well, that's probably the point in which you need to get in touch with a specialist, and they can try to help you in terms of improving your SEO. So next up, I'm just going to check any questions. No. Okay. Email marketing. Let's jump in. So email marketing is one of those things that I think is making a bit of a comeback. So a few years ago, I think email marketing held like a really negative stigma. I think people were a little bit annoyed with emails. I think they just thought there was too much out there. But open rates are just getting better and better. So an interesting fact is that if you are sending emails out from an email software system like Campaign Monitor or MailChimp, A good open rate is anything more than 30%. And so that may sound really low, but that is a good open rate. So maybe go back if you are sending emails and check what your open rate is in comparison to that. So how do you send effective emails? Well, first of all, you need to have a goal. Why are you sending these emails? Is it because you want to give a general update? Is it sales driven? Is it a welcome email? Is it to give a critical piece of timely information? I think the whole idea is don't send an email for the sake of it. So if you have a newsletter, make sure that you're sending it out because it's packed full of insightful and valuable content. Timing. So don't send an email out at 12 o'clock at night. It will just get lost in an inbox. Interestingly enough, a few places say that Tuesday is the best day to send an email out on. So maybe try that and see what happens. Then the next thing is you're going to want to select your email software system. So I think Campaign Monitor or MailChimp are the two best. They're probably the most well-known, and they give the most flexibility in terms of creating really nice, good-looking HTML emails. So HTML emails are emails that have pretty pictures or animation. So it's the ones that Tesco send or Marks and Spencer's. So the idea is that you could be creating gorgeous looking emails that engage users if you used either of those platforms. Now, what you want to do is also try and build up sort of a database of contacts. And so how you can do that is through your website. So you can ask people to sign up for your newsletter. Or when you onboard clients, you may ask, do they mind if you email them? You could ask on social media. Another point there is just to make sure that you have asked permission. I'm not going to dive into GDPR, but I definitely don't send unsolicited emails. And then obviously you want to make sure that your campaigns are targeted. So maybe if you go back to your customer personas, you may send different campaigns based on your different customers, or it could be for certain products, or it could be for certain areas of your business that people may be interested in. So the more targeted, the better the response rates. And June, I see you've asked a question about HubSpot. I'm going to answer that in 2 slides time. So the next thing is to talk about things like call to action. So we've spoken about those in a lot of detail, but the idea is to make sure that your emails always have a call to action. So at the end of them, make sure it's get in touch with us or visit our website for more or learn more. The other thing you want to make sure is that they are optimized for mobile. I won't even go into the reasons because I think I've really hammered down how important mobile is. And you want to make sure that they are laid out well. So it's really easy that you can read the email and it's not, sometimes you get an email and all the formatting's wrong and you kind of lose the will to live and you probably will close or delete the email immediately. Subject lines. Now, subject lines are so important. Please don't just send, this is a newsletter or here's your update. Be creative with your subject lines. It's what gets people to open their emails, and personalize it. So I love an email that says, "Hi, Jessica," and then also refers to me in the email. So it will say, "You would love this," or "You may need this." Marks and Spencer's does it really well. So they often saying, "Hey, Jessica, you would look great in this coat." And it just plays on that sort of emotional, subjective, subliminal messaging of like, oh, they know what I want. And I think the idea again is that you want to make sure that the emails sound like you've written it for one customer, even though it's going out to many. Okay, unsubscribes. Please make it easy for people to unsubscribe. I recently lodged a complaint against a company because it took me 4 emails to unsubscribe from their mailing list. You actually, if you know anything about GDPR, you have to make it easy for people to unsubscribe. So please make sure you do that. And then some other tips is you could give people an exclusive deal. So what you may want to do is you may want to say, I'm emailing out to say that for the next 24 hours, if you purchase this product on our website, you get 10% off. So it gives people that idea that being part of this list, they're getting something in return. The last thing is you could do like a cliffhanger. So you could say, this is email part 1 of 2, or come back next week, or in our next newsletter, we're going to cover this, this, and this. And basically what it does is it's going to make sure that people stay engaged and almost wait and anticipate your emails. I do that with a lot of the industry emails I sign up for. They come regularly at the same time, and every week they tease next week's email. And that way I'm always looking out for it if I think that there's something of interest to me. Now, what I'm going to do is I see there's 2 questions that have come in. June, yes, HubSpot's great. And actually, I'm going to talk about HubSpot in terms of inbound marketing. So if you don't mind, I will come back to you on that one. But it is a great platform. I think it's probably the best platform in terms of a CRM that can do email marketing, that can help with pushing content onto your social. So we'll talk about in a second. Camille, I see you said, if you send something with HTML, are they more likely to end up in spam? Listen, it's different based on every single company. So, with HTML mailers, there's no guarantee that it will successfully deliver. However, I think you need to balance it out. So if there's something really critical and you feel that it has to reach your customer, then you may want to send a personalized email from Outlook or Gmail. However, I think that becomes a little bit onerous. So I would encourage you to use a platform like Campaign Monitor, HubSpot, MailChimp, and just monitor. If you're getting hugely high bounce rate, then yeah, you may need to reconsider a different form of communication. But for example, I know I've emailed for a client before, and Barclays Bank is an example where emails just seem to never deliver if it's an HTML format. But equally, I don't seem to have any issues, and I have a business partner who is all about a spam filter and security. So it is a risk, but I think it's a risk worth taking. So I just put some examples here of some cool HTML mailers, and I won't go into too much detail. You can read them afterwards, but it's also about what you say. One of the things I loved about this Fitbit one here is it says, your Fitbit order has shipped. Are you smiling? You're totally smiling. No need to camp out by the mailbox. Use this number to track your package. So instead of just being like, we have shipped your order, it will be with you soon, just the language, it just makes it so much more engaging. And the same goes for this Huckberry email on the right. It's an example of a confirmation email of buying a product. And then underneath, they've said, well, here's also some trending gear. So if you want to, try and upsell other products, you may want to include in your confirmation email for a sale more products below. So I think with email marketing, the idea is that it has its place, but it has its place in conjunction with everything else. So going back to Camille's question, if you feel that there is a risk that people won't receive your emails, make sure that those communication elements are also included on your website, maybe in a blog, maybe it's also included on your social media. So you're kind of ticking all the boxes and hope that your customer will see those messages across your different platforms. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about online advertising, because this is a minefield again. There's so many different things you could be doing when it comes to advertising online. So you can be advertising on social media. So that's your Facebook posts, paid for adverts. That could be on Instagram, it could be on LinkedIn, it could be on Twitter. You then have your paid search advertising. So that's more your Google AdWords, your PPC, which we'll go into in a bit. You can also do display advertising. So I don't know if anyone's watched YouTube lately, and it's that annoying advert like the example there. That's called display advertising. And then you get banner adverts. So let's say you go into something like 3FM and you see the adverts at the top and on the sides. That's called a banner advert. Now, what's great about online advertising is, of course, is that you can put out really great adverts that hopefully people will click on and come back to your website. So what's nice about this form of advertising is that you can normally track and monitor success. And so, a little bit different to putting, let's say, a print advert in a publication. It's sometimes hard to ascertain its success. With online adverts, you can actually see if they are getting a great response. So, I've put some tips here which you can go through, and I'm not going to go through in too much detail because I think, it's a bit self-explanatory. But when doing online advertising, especially if you're doing like a banner advert or you're doing some sort of visual, you need to make sure that it ticks all the boxes. It's got a great headline. It really draws someone in. It's visually appealing. It's on brand. You know, what I see all the time is people boosting posts on Facebook and the posts aren't great. And so I just think it's a waste of money. So when you do an advert or you boost a post, make sure that the content itself is really visually engaging, has a strong call to action, and it kind of ties back to your strategy. Does it meet all of your requirements? Now, the one thing that I think a lot of people are interested in, and I wanted to talk about today, is Google AdWords. So when I showed you earlier that search result, and there were 2 ads at the top, you know, again, those are paid for adverts, and there seems to be a lot of there's a negativity around whether to pay for adverts on Google. I'm one of those people that I think everything has its place. So if you're doing really well in terms of search and you are confident that you don't need advertising, so be it. But for some people, committing some budget to try and have an ad on Google really may help in terms of getting traffic back to their site. And so what's nice about Google AdWords is you can be really precise or you can be really broad. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can create in terms of an advert. Another great thing about Google Ads is you can create certain adverts for certain platforms. So you can target people only on mobile. Now, obviously, that's great if you have, let's say, a mobile app. So every time someone's on mobile, your advert will show to them and they can download the app immediately. Whereas if they're on desktop, it's not quite the same. So what's quite nice about AdWords is you can actually direct people exactly to your sort of conversion method on the right platform. You pay only for results, which is amazing, especially if you go for cost per click. And so what that means is every time someone clicks on your ad, you pay for that. And I think what's quite nice, again, you can easily calculate return on investment. I spent $1 or £1 and I got £8 back, or whatever the case may be. So it is nice to be able to quantify that. Now with Google AdWords, I just, you can choose 2 different types. You can do that display network, which is basically like any sort of third-party website that Google has power over or collaborates with, or it's like YouTube. So those are the awesome adverts that pop up on YouTube, whereas you can have adverts within their search network. So that's when you open Google or your browser and you type in something and the ads that are returned. Now, what I like about search adverts is I think that's a good place to start. So if you're looking to run a PPC, a pay-per-click campaign, I would start with the search network, because what you can do there is you can use the keywords that we have already created and talked about previously, and you can just create written content and copy adverts versus having to come up with actual visual creative. So if you look on the right there, that's how easy it is in terms of setting up an advert. So you put in exactly where the advert must link to. So that could be your landing page, in terms of, it could be a marketing landing page, or it could be a specific page on your website. Then you put in your headline, you put it in a description, and it gives you some tips on how to write your ads. And so I think what's nice about Google AdWords is that you can also have multiple adverts on at the same time, and therefore you can evaluate which work and which don't, and then you can kill the ones that don't work. I know clients that for maybe the last 4 years have had a consistent, let's say 100 to 150 pounds per month budget running on a Google ad, and they get really good click-through rates from that. So if you're interested in running a Google AdWords campaign or PPC campaign, what I would say is make sure that your website, first and foremost, is geared towards getting those leads and converting those leads, and focus on your website, focus on the basics of SEO, and then dive into AdWords. So don't dive straight into AdWords. This is something that should be done once you've got the other things that we've spoken about right. And I think, again, when it comes to advertising on Google, you are competing with your competitors, and in some cases with the world. And so what you want to make sure is that you're not spending too much money for little results, because you could be spending because you can actually bid for certain keywords, but we're getting a little bit technical. And sometimes I know for a fact that insurance, I think in the UK, I read something the other day, that sometimes that can go for up to £200-300, so per click for an insurance ad. So locally, it's much less. So if you are interested in an AdWords campaign, then maybe get in touch. I can direct you to some really good SEO specialists, or I can help you myself. Now I see there's a question, so I'm just going to jump across. Does Google cause clicks, or is every click genuine? That's from Linda. Linda, I would hope that every click is genuine. I can't speak for Google in terms of, I'm not an advocate for it. However, if you use Google Analytics, you should be able to monitor all of those clicks. So if you're looking at the results within your AdWords account and you're seeing 100 clicks, but then you're not seeing that within your analytics, then yeah, there could be a disconnect. But I think that Google, to a certain extent, has too much on the line to fake it. And I think if they were, people would have discovered it by now. However, I can't say that anything's 100% accurate. All I know is that campaigns I've run, or campaigns that clients have run, they have seen success from it. So if you are running a campaign, monitor your stats in AdWords, look at your analytics on your website, and make sure that those correlate, and that will probably answer your question. So right, what we're going to do now is we're going to end off everything today and talk about why all of these different elements are important. And something that I really believe in is inbound marketing. So June beat me to it by saying HubSpot, but basically inbound marketing is basically a phrase or methodology that HubSpot came up with. And I'll read you the actual description from HubSpot. And it says, inbound marketing is a business methodology that attracts customers by creating valuable content and experiences tailored to them. While outbound marketing interrupts your audience with content they don't always want, inbound marketing forms connections they're looking for and solve problems they already have. And so the idea with inbound marketing is that it's about putting out content, and people then will search for your content and find it. It's not always about pushing your message. If you're interested in inbound marketing and learning more, really go read this book. It is from 2014, but it's still really relevant. And there are actually some great blogs about inbound marketing, including HubSpot. So the power of inbound marketing is this diagram here. And I think now you'll understand why I went through everything the way I did. So inbound marketing basically says, right, how are we going to take someone on a journey? So this is looking at someone who's a complete stranger to your brand, and how do you get them to become a brand advocate, someone who promotes your brand to other customers and therefore attracts more strangers to come back to you. And it's this little cycle. So it's broken up into 4 key areas: attract, convert, close, and delight. And the idea is that you have a stranger and they will be looking for some sort of service or product or business. And so they may use search. So those are keywords. They may go on social media. They may go onto different pages and blogs on your website. And they will now visit and interact with you. So you've attracted them because you've got this information out there. So when they search for black dress UK, your website is ranking, and therefore they go and they visit your site. So once they become a visitor, that's when you really need to work on converting them. And how do you do that? That's through your calls to actions, your landing pages, your forms, your contact details. That's where you take them through each critical communication element on your site with the goal of capturing that lead or that sale. Once they're a lead, you need to actually close that. So what sometimes happens is that the relationship doesn't always just start and finish on the website. You may want to take that lead and give it to your sales team, who then get in touch with them offline. So you may be sending them emails. You may be sending them details on social through messaging. But the idea is that you're now going to try close that deal. Once they become a customer, Don't forget about them. You then need to delight them. So now you're going to share more content, and that's going to be on social media. It's going to be through your emails. The more content you share with them, you could actually get more business out of them. But more importantly, you will create a brand advocate who will hopefully go out there, share your post to their friend, who will then come to your website and start as a stranger. This is such an important methodology. I have this printed out and I always refer to it. And if you go back and you think, well, my website, where does it sit if I look at the attract, convert, close, and delight? Well, it sits in all areas. How do I get people to my website? Got to focus on SEO. How do I get people to convert? I've got to look at the conversions. How do I get people to stay engaged? I've got to share blog content. And so if you have this printed out and you address absolutely everything we've spoken about, and you want to actually try this inbound marketing methodology, then use this, produce really great content, and hopefully this will become part of your sort of marketing and sales funnel. Now, the thing with inbound marketing is HubSpot coined the methodology and probably lead from the front. So if you want, I would definitely say go read HubSpot's blog. They have so much information about what's great and what is going on in this space. And also they have an actual CRM system that allows you to actually monitor your leads through that process, and it's fantastic. And so I've put some tips here in terms of how you can be successful with inbound marketing, but it comes back to everything we spoke about today. Be consistent with your content creation and posting. Create content that is valuable. Make sure you use those lead generation tactics and your calls to action. Make sure your website meets all of your objectives. Make sure your sales team or your business development team is aware of the content you're putting out there and the leads that you're getting them. Don't forget about your existing customers. I think we work so hard to get new customers and forget that we can actually engage with our existing customers. And what you also want to do is sometimes you want to automate the process, and that's where you can use something like HubSpot or Salesforce. So what does this all result in? And I think what it all results in is that you want to give your customer the best customer experience. And, I always look at someone like Apple. I love that every single touch point with Apple is consistent. Their website, the way you walk into their shops, the way you unpackage their products. And so what you need to consider is every single touch point for your clients, from your websites to your social media to your emails. Are they consistent? Are they feeding into that inbound marketing methodology? Are they speaking to your strategy? And so whatever you do today, read these last 2 slides. Be committed to whatever you choose to do online. So no matter what you choose, even if there's just one thing from today you choose to do, commit to it and do it well. Ensure you are focusing and are customer centric. Make sure you focus on your customer. If you lose that, you tend to lose yourself, and your business often stumbles because you lose focus on what's most important. You need to keep up to date with the latest trends. So educating yourself on sessions like this hopefully will make sure that your customers get the best out of you. And you want to make sure you market the why of your business, because that's probably why you have customers, and that's why you'll maintain your customers. And I love this little slide. It said, Netflix did not kill Blockbuster, ridiculous late fees did. Uber did not kill the taxi business, limited access and fare control did, etc., etc. And it says, technology by itself is not the disruptor. Not being customer centric is the biggest threat to any business. So what I really encourage you to do is don't get too technical with anything. Don't get lost in digital, and don't get lost in technology. Make sure your customer is always at the center of what you do, and that way you will always succeed. And so, like I promised, oh, there's a favorite saying, sorry. We see our customers as invited guests to a party, and we are the hosts. It's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer experience a little bit better. And I think that's what you need to focus on. And like I said, I've put some really useful links hopefully in here. I know it's been a rapid lot to speak about. I hope you found it interesting, but I think the idea is, in particular, if you're interested in websites, the next course on Wednesday is probably great for you, and then the data analytics one on Friday. But do know that, like I said about my intentions for today that I wrote this morning, if you're just now interested in finding out more, then hopefully I've done my job. And I'll just get to the end here. I have put some details on how you can get in touch with me. If there's anything I've missed on the chat, because I've been trying to keep up to date, just give me a shout. And yeah, I just really appreciate you giving 2 hours. And I think on behalf of the industry of digital marketing online, it's inspiring to see that most people are interested in this and they're hungry for more knowledge. So feed your knowledge, and good luck, and know that there's so much support and so many great agencies on the island that can help you. So thanks so much, Bex.
Thank you so much, Jess. Oh, you're amazing. I've learned so much this morning. It's been absolutely fantastic. And like Jess says, if anyone's got any other questions, please just whiz them through to me on my email and I can forward them to Jess. Not a problem at all. Honestly, Jess, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. We will follow this session up with the recording of the session and Jess's slides and any other useful links, etc., etc. Just before I let you all go, please don't run away yet. I've just got just bringing in Susan Lawler from the Department for Enterprise. She just wants to quickly talk about some funding that could be available to you. So it's definitely worth listening to. I've just lost my my box. Hang on a minute. We're just doing some. Oh, there she is. Wonderful. So Susan, crack on.
Hi there, thanks very much, Jess. Thank you very much for that. It was quite interesting for us as well to listen to and kind of find out obviously more about it. In terms of obviously how the department can help then, the Department for Enterprise has a scheme called the Business Improvement Scheme. And the whole idea of this scheme is to provide potential funding to businesses that wish to undertake certain projects within their business. So obviously one of the main things that we do is we can do things under the Business Improvement Scheme for things like digital marketing, social media, etc. So how it works is that the department can offer up to 50% of funding towards your project. It's projects that you don't have the expertise in-house to undertake. So things like obviously somebody like Jess could act as your project consultant in this case. The eligibility requirements then are pretty standard in terms of the DFE's grants. It's obviously you have to be incorporated in the Isle of Man. That we ask that you have one member of staff out with the owners of the business, unless you've been running for less than 18 months and you have no government debts. We can take you through this, but the main point is that this scheme offers you the chance to undertake these projects. It's not just limited to things like digital marketing, social media, there's websites, there's a whole range of different projects. But the reason that we wanted obviously to speak quickly today about it is that we have increased funding for things like websites, digital marketing, social media. So from that perspective, the department are offering up to £10,000 of funding. We've also relaxed the rules. The rules have been relaxed at the moment until the 31st of March. It means that on-island businesses can now apply for these two different projects. It means that you don't have to have a transactional website. It means that you can have a static website. What we would say to you is it's impossible for us to go through each and every aspect of this today. What we would ask is that you have a look online and that you come to us with any questions that you have. As you can see from the slides here, there are more project disciplines available, but what we thought was it would link in very nicely with what Jess was talking about earlier on. So in terms of the digital marketing, social media, as we said, the Economic Recovery Group got together a few months back and thought about ways in which they could support the local economy. One way was to include the digital marketing, social media and website supports, and to increase that funding that's available to businesses, whereby previously it was capped at £5,000, it's now up to £10,000. There's no minimum project spend. So please don't be sitting there thinking, well, I'm only going to spend a couple of thousand on this. There is that potential for funding. What we would reiterate is the fact that obviously we do have this 31st of March deadline at the moment. That is a deadline for applications. This may be extended, but at this point in time, we're not sure that that will happen. So how do we go about applying? Well, the first thing is obviously contact a member of the enterprise support team. We can take you through the process. We can answer any initial queries that you have. When you're applying, we'd ask you to include a quotation from your chosen project consultant. We'd ask you to have as much information as possible within that, so that we can have a look at it and ascertain your eligibility and the project consultant's eligibility. Once these checks have been completed and your application has been verified and sent for approval, we will get in touch with you and we will confirm the amount of funding that's available to you. The project will commence, and you'll have, if you're applying under the Economic Recovery Group guidelines, then you have 6 months in which to finish the project. Once you complete that project, it's your responsibility then to pay your project consultant, and then you would come to the department for reimbursement. It takes up to about 3 weeks to get that reimbursement. But the thing is that it allows you to invest in your business in a cost-effective manner and get a professional team to undertake the project for you. As I say, apply before you buy is one of our main things. With any of our grants, what we ask you to do is to apply, get authorisation before you start the project. Grants cannot be paid in advance. Obviously, from a cash flow perspective for any business, you have to take that into consideration. But as we said, it takes about 3 weeks to get money back to you for that. You must have at least 1 employee. If you are in the startup phase of your business, i.e. less than 18 months trading, please contact the department and we can go through the terms and conditions in a bit more detail. And as we said, if you're taking advantage of the increased funding, please get your application in before the 31st of March. It's not that this is going to stop. The funding isn't going to stop as of the 31st of March. It's just at this point in time that we have had additional funding through the Economic Recovery Group. So our contact details are on screen at the moment. We're available by telephone, by email, or on our inquiries link on the website. We're happy to go through anything with you. We're happy to discuss these grants and any other grants that you may have. So in terms of from me today, that's about all we've got to say on it. We'll hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Susan. That's wonderful. And huge thank you again to Jess. Your knowledge is phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the series this week. Thank you, everyone. We'll let you go. Spot on timing as well. I'm very impressed. Great morning. Good way to start our week. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll see some of you on Wednesday afternoon for Jess's next session. Thanks very much.